WDM systems are being looked at as a way of increasing the capacity for fibre to the home. Then as we look at the network, people are looking at FlexGrid, and that's very much a hot topic that's been going on for the last couple of years. And what we've got this year is a workshop, which is then going to say, it's a lot of time and investment to go to this FlexGrid. Is it really worth the 30% gain that we're seeing from this? So we're going to have quite an exciting workshop looking at that. And I'm quite excited by a lot of the other workshops. We've got a lot of questions which these workshops are going to try and address. And it's trying to probe and have some real interaction, a good high-level discussion about what the real issues are in the community today, and what are the things we need to be thinking about for the future. So one of the things we've been very keen to push on is to make sure things like workshops are very interactive, and that we get a lot of discussion going on there, so that people are able to have a discussion with other people who are working in the fields, and we can actually together collectively move along the field. We've got two linked workshops on this, one of the hot topics, which is space division multiplexing. So the first workshop is the technology there for SDM? And we have a second workshop, which is, if the technology is there, do we want to use it? Because it means ripping out the existing fibre, putting all this new fibre. So these are the two workshops that, for example, are coupled, and they're trying to, one will follow the other, saying, do we have the technology? Is it something that is feasible to do? And then the real question is, if it's feasible to do, is it really something sensible to do? So that's what we're trying to do in terms of linking that and actually trying to get some discussion going.
This subcommittee has 3 panels and 1 workshop. The workshop is on software-defined networks. I mentioned that it's controversial, and this is meant to be controversial. It's really, is software-defined network appropriate for a carrier? We have organizers from Google and Cisco, and I think, so they're going to organize this session. I think it will be very interesting, where I think they are, committed or believe in SDN within wide area networks. And I think the audience will be populated by people who are very skeptical. So I am looking forward to a good discussion in that group. One of the panels is on dynamic network services. This is, I mentioned cloud computing as new requirements for dynamic network services. And so we have a special panel devoted to that topic, and where we have AT&T, Ciena, representatives from carriers and from manufacturers representing how they're proposing that, as well as from the federal agencies. I think this is the first time that I'm aware of that people from the federal agencies have spoken at OFC. And they've been working in this area for 10 years. They have existing services, and they represent a pretty mature perspective on dynamic network services. Another panel is on network security. A person, Scott McNown, who has been working in this field his entire career, has pulled together a panel at the request of the program committee chairs on network security. And so that's another one that we have. Initiatives and applications of optical control plane networks. Joe Berthold and Jonathan Sadler. Joe Berthold is Vice President of Architecture at Ciena, and John Sadler works at Tel Labs. He's been committee chair within the OIF, the Optical Internetworking Forum, that has developed the optical control plane for years. They're thoroughly familiar and expert in this area. And they're organizing a panel on the application of the optical control plane within carrier networks. This is, say, a 10 years long development, and it's only, I would say, its adoption has been slow for this technology, and I think they'll present a perspective on what deployments have there been, how is it being used, and what are the impediments to its deployment.
So the workshop this year is one that's really trying to ask the question. There have been lots of demonstrations of what optics can do, but we live in a world where most processing of signals is done in microprocessors, essentially on silicon. So the workshop is, does analog optics have a role within a digital world? And we've set it up with groups of speakers almost taking opposite sides of the argument. So in each applications area, essentially asking the question, getting a response, and then we'll have an open discussion, and people will have the opportunity to weigh each side against the other. I'd like to say a little bit about the organisers. We have Paul Judorkis from MIT Lincoln Lab, many remarkable demonstrations of capability in analog photonics, and also Michael Sauer from Corning.
In the workshop, we're basically looking at how optics will benefit the future in the data centers. You know, what problems can optics solve? So we actually have a multitude of very distinguished panels, speakers coming in to give a talk. It promises to be quite an exciting talk, because there's always a kind of a discussion, I would call it a discussion, between VCSEL-based interconnects and the silicon photonics-based interconnects, of which is the better choice of a technology, or even if it's better to do single mode or multi-mode. You know, so there's an ongoing friendly discussion of that topic within the community. So that's going to be part of the workshop that we have.
The workshops are every workshop should be a must-attend workshop, and that's where we've really tried to focus on that in terms of making them more interactive, making them provocative, as usually most of the workshops are in the form of a question that needs an answer, and we really try and encourage audience participation. I think there are some very interesting workshops in terms of some of the, again, issues with silicon photonics, which I think are coming to the forefront because it has been such an active research technology that people might be getting a little bit impatient to try and start looking for real systems deployment or real taking it to the next level where you're making a component that's sold in the marketplace and not just tested in a research lab. So we have one workshop on the kind of the final frontier for silicon photonics is how do you get a laser source integrated with your silicon chip. You fundamentally still need a 3.5 somewhere to generate the light, and what are the best ways or the best approaches, at least with the vision that we have now, for how to do that.
I would encourage everyone to come along and come to the workshops and get involved and ask the questions of those people doing the work in terms of why are they doing it and is this the right direction to be going? Because only by coming to a meeting like this do we actually get to talk to the people who are doing it.